Hey, folks, welcome to another edition of Firing Line Radio Show. This is Philip Naiman, your happy host. I hope we have all been through enough of the weather here. I know that California got absolutely buried in snow, as did Prescott. I think we had 4 feet at my house in Prescott. So we've had enough of the snow for a while. Grateful as we are for the moisture. Boy, did it come down hard this year. Now, one person who's on the show with me today who didn't have any snow because he's in Huntington Beach, and that is Rick Travis. Rick, how you doing this morning?
Pretty good.
Folks, if you're watching on the YouTube here, if you saw the screen from Rick, you would swear he's in Sacramento by the number of zombies that are out there behind him. But it could be downtown LA, it could be San Francisco, it could be Sacramento. Any large city kind of looks like that these days. Rick is
Portland.
oh yeah, Portland. Oh my goodness. Rick Travis is the legislative director for the California Rifle and Pistol Association, which means that every single week he goes into the belly of the beast and fights the most insane bills that people are trying to impose upon you to restrict your freedoms in all areas. And look, if you're out there in Flagstaff or Prescott and you're listening to the show, you're like, I'm tired of California. I'm turning it off. That's why I moved here. You need to listen to this because you are in the Ninth Circuit Court. And anything that is approved in California and the Ninth Circuit Court of Schlemiels, if they uphold it, it becomes law in your state until it eventually possibly gets overturned at the Supreme Court. It may not get overturned. So there's a lot of reasons why you need to know what's happening around you. And it's not just California, right? I feel like I'm always preaching to the Arizona guys. It's like, hey, you need to really watch what's happening in your state. Now, Arizona, they did defeat it, but here's how it starts, folks. It starts incrementally, right? Kaizen, small improvements. Here's what they do. In Arizona, they had a trigger lock and gun safes bill. Why? For the children. Safety for the children. We want to stop accidental deaths. We all want to stop accidental deaths, but mandatory trigger locks and gun safes are not the way to do that. Rick, what's your idea on that?
Well, I think one of the things I want to put up at the front is all of our people need to listen to the rhetoric of the legislature. They will tell you they go to get the experts. They try to bring out the right people in to protect your family. And one of the things that I assert all the time is that's interesting because if you look at organizations like the one I work for, we have a 148-year history of teaching firearm safety. Yet, how many times has our organization been asked to come talk to legislators, the governor, about how to keep people safe with the firearms? Yep, that's right, zero. The same is true in Arizona, Colorado, Utah, and the list goes on here in the Western United States. They never call us, but they call a group of people that have gone together maybe 2-3 years ago, put a fancy name on themselves. They're called in. They have zero range experience, zero firearms experience, zero anything in this space, and they become the experts. And so right away, you have to look at that's like having somebody say, I've never worked on a car, but I'm going to fix whatever your
Your
vehicle
car.
is.
I have zero mechanical experience, but I'm going to work on your car.
Right. Like that makes absolutely no sense. And that should stop anybody with common sense from wanting to deal with these
Well, the
people.
same crowd doesn't want you to own a vehicle either. So maybe that's not a good analogy. You'll own nothing. You'll walk everywhere, but you won't be allowed to go anywhere. But if you were
Right.
allowed to go somewhere, you would have walked. Yeah, it's
Right.
great.
But by the way, they will be driven in luxury.
Of course. Well, for the good of the people, always for the good of
Right.
the people. Now, let's I'm gonna pick on Arizona here again. I love you guys. I'm an Arizona guy, right? To our east is New Mexico. Now, New Mexico is just about as legislatively crazy as California. I don't know if you guys realize this or not, but New Mexico, they smoke too much Tao or whatever up there in Santa Fe. New Mexico's trying to get an assault weapons ban. Now, this is the great
Mhm.
Southwest. This is free America, we thought, right? Rick, tell us what else is going on in New Mexico.
They're trying to, with House Bill 100, they're trying to put in a 14-day waiting period.
14.
101,
California's only got 10. They're
right.
like, we want to beat California by 40%.
Yeah, and it makes no sense at all because, I mean, the whole purpose behind a waiting period is, quote, a cooling off period, as you know, from formerly being from California. And the fact is, there's never been a documented case that somebody who already owns a firearm and decides to go bat crazy and do bodily harm to somebody else, that they go to their safe or their drawer, wherever they keep that firearm, and go, oh, I'm so ticked off at X, but I need a different gun to do it. No, they're going to use whatever's available.
A
But
hammer, an
yeah,
axe.
but according to California's DOJ, no, you need another cooling off period. Well, this is ridiculous, because some of us over our lifetime have bought in several firearms and been background checked every time. And in this state, you're told if you do anything wrong, everyone's going to know, because it's going to be reported to everybody that you had the background check done with. So if I'm not in handcuffs, then I should be able to buy a firearm. But nope, still have to pay all these fees. It's just a tax. It's just a way to further make people feel uncomfortable exercising a constitutional right.
Yeah, they're wearing it down. They're grating. They're like a big cheese grater. They take off a layer at a time, and they continually, the Chinese water torture. It's a drip, drip, drip on your forehead. And as much as I love having you on, your shows are the most painful, Rick, because you have to tell us the
Sorry.
truth. I know, but you have to tell us the truth of what's going on here and the evil that we face. And people who are taking away your civil rights are evil, whether it's the right to free speech, whether they're censoring all this information that's trying to get out, whether they're controlling, I don't know, maybe a raw videotape footage of an event that happened in January a couple of years ago. And suddenly we're finding out, which we suspected, but now we're finding out flat out and honest truth, that it was a fabricated thing, and people are in jail unfairly, and no one's making a move, including the Republicans in the Senate, to get them out.
Right.
Yeah, Mitch McConnell took a slip and fall this week, and well, let's just say the Senate could use some new leadership, and this might be a good avenue for him to take a long vacation back to China, and we'll get some new leadership in there, and I'm okay with that. How's that? Did I say that cleanly, nicely enough? I don't know. Let me tell you what I really think. What I really, really think. Okay, so our point on this, folks, is that it's not just California. Everywhere these people are in the legislature, and whether they're part of the World Economic Forum's growth of people like Dan Crenshaw, people we thought we could trust, or not, we don't know yet. But they're insane, and they are doing everything they can to impose their wills upon us and restrict our rights. So New Mexico, the 14-day waiting period they want. Yeah. And no automatic firearms too, I think, was the other part of New Mexico's
Yeah.
bill. Yeah. Yeah, that's great. Glock 19, you know.
And they also have Senate Bill 116, which, I think when somebody does a cursory look at, they're like, okay, but they're not thinking. So it's an age requirement of 21 to own a firearm. Yet at 18, literally at 17, if you have a parental signature, you join the military and you're using a firearm. So now you got to tell people that are stationed. I know the Air Force has some pretty large bases in New Mexico, as does the Army. You're going to tell those people that are serving, oh, now that you're serving your country and you live in the state of New Mexico, you become a resident because you're stationed there for a period of time. Yeah, you can't own a firearm, but we can call you at any moment to go use a firearm to defend the country. Like, it just doesn't make sense.
Well, someone's got to take care of the Ukrainian borders. Borders are so important when they're not in our country. Yeah. So, okay. So we've got lots of things. Colorado. Now, Colorado's been a hotbed of insanity going on for a while here. We've got the magazine restrictions already in place. They've got waiting periods. Now they want a new red flag and ghost gun banning. What's a ghost gun?
That's a great question, because that has yet to be properly defined in California, even though we have numerous ghost gun bills.
I thought it was the one that was the 30-watt plasma thing. You can't cross the streams or you blow up the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man.
Right.
That's a ghost gun.
Or the one that was in or the one that Arnold Schwarzenegger asks for in Terminator. He's like, just what you see, buddy.
So here's Arnold Schwarzenegger saying, I need a 40-watt plasma rifle, but he's the one who signed the law saying Americans, Californians do not need a 50 caliber rifle, something that does exist. Never forgive the Schwarzenegger. Too much sauerkraut to the brain on that guy. But folks, every single state is fighting these battles, and that's what we're talking about here. So how do you do it? How do you fight back? You join groups like the California Rifle and Pistol Association, CRPA.org, because they're the tip of the spear. You want to be in special forces? These guys are legislative special forces because they're the first ones in on every single battle that you will eventually be fighting. Firing Line Radio Show. We'll be right back after this. Ready?
Yep.
Hey, folks, welcome back to Firing Line Radio Show. Philip Naiman here with Rick Travis, the legislative director, the supreme commander of the California Rifle and Pistol Association. You just get that title. You've done everything else there. Just run it all. He does an absolutely great job. And as I just mentioned, folks, at the end of the last segment, hopefully you heard that, because I'm trying to point out the fact that we're not all alone. We're all in this together. The California Rifle and Pistol Association has been around for about 140 years. They've done everything from training. They still do, at all the fairs, they've got BB guns up there teaching kids how to shoot. They're involved in the youth fairs, youth safaris out here in Rahagis, all kinds of training stuff. They have, matter of fact, I think at your headquarters, you have basic handgun training that you guys are doing also. There's lots of things that they do besides fight for your rights, but fighting for your rights is the most important, most effective thing they do. And they are the tip of the spear, meaning that if something crazy is going to get into the Ninth Circuit Court, it's going through the big, fat, wide gates of California. It's going to find some idiotic judge at a San Jose or San Francisco or Sacramento and just push it through. And it's going to end up as a state law through our crazy legislature with a super majority of Democrats. Nothing can stop them. We have an insane governor, Gavinus Nerosum, the little emperor who thought he should. He is running this state as if he is a dictator, and the legislature allows him to get away with this. And then as we sue to stop his insanity, we end up in a circus court, the federal district court that Gavin Newsom's put the people on, or Gray Davis, or Jerry Brown, or any of the other loser governors we've had for the last 25 years in this state. So we've got these terrible, terrible judges making terrible decisions. And then we go to the Ninth Circuit Court, and that's where this stops, or that's where this takes effect to other states, including everybody who thought they were safe skipping over the border. That's why I'm saying join this group, send some money there, help them fight this legislatively. It is extremely important, because once it's in the Supreme Court, hey man, now it's going to affect everybody in the entire country. If we can stop this crud, keep it local, and contain the spill, like, I don't know, East Palestine, Ohio, as opposed to letting it catch fire and spread all over the whole East Coast. I mean, maybe that's a good illustration here. We want to set some booms up and contain the insanity of the irrational bills and attacks on our Second Amendment rights, contain them where they belong in small groups, and then we can defeat them there, as opposed to letting it spread and poison the entire country. And that's why I have Rick on. I know we're in Arizona. I know we're in California, but this is everybody in the United States needs to know what's happening in California and how to fight against it. Okay. If I didn't say this before, go to crpa.org, join them, donate, help us fight them. Be the Special Forces Second Amendment warrior that you think you are. Step it up.
And just as a side note, there are those of us in California that look across the border to our brothers and sisters in Arizona and go, don't forget, a lot of this stuff actually originates in a think tank in Arizona called the Giffords and comes to California to be tested. before
because
it
they
goes
can get
back
it
out.
because they can get it through the legislature. But yeah, this is Gabby Gifford's group.
Right.
Mark Mark Kelly, the senator's wife, the senator
Right.
of Arizona, the guy who got reelected somehow, some way. Yeah.
Yeah.
Ugh. There goes my blood pressure. I don't have high blood pressure until we start talking about what's happening to our rights here. But no, okay, let's talk about some of the other Utah. Everybody
Yeah.
thinks Utah is a bastion of sanity, right? Law and order. What's happening in Utah?
They have a really egregious bill, House Bill 1178. That is going to give, if passed, cities and counties the authority to enact gun control if they feel like the state legislature fails. So, in other words, when we talk about blue and red counties in all the western states, generally speaking, the higher density populated areas tend to lean more to the left, and often the majority of the state is red. Well, this would say, oh, when the majority of the state gets together in the state legislature and fails to do what the blues want them to do, the blues can still do it locally.
Yep. Which would be Salt Lake City.
Correct.
Yeah. And the surrounding areas there that have turned very, very liberal in a very short period of time. And socially liberal too. Very much so.
We have a lot of areas like St. George. They're starting to become very pink because you're getting a lot of people from California that are left, but don't want to pay the high tax prices that they encouraged. And so now they're moving to places like St. George and Provo and Ogden. And so, a lot of people up there are saying, oh, it won't happen. But look to Coeur d'Alene, Idaho. That went pink very, very quick. And now I would say is purple, if not all out blue.
What? Well, in Boise too,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Three Falls is
it's
go ahead.
Anything with, Moscow, Idaho, anything with a college. Look at, Arizona has been purple forever. They've had the McCain fact that has been a disaster for the country. But they had Napolitano, right? She was just as crazy as Gray Davis. And, there's some winners all the way around. It's not just California's fault. We are all in this together, but we can stop a lot of this crud from infecting the states you live in if we stop it in California.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't like illegal aliens in your neighborhood, you would enforce the border laws, right? If they're destroying things, if they're wreaking havoc on the social services, you would want a stronger border. Well, this is the same thing we're talking about here. If you don't want this insanity infecting your states, you need to have a border, if you will. Stop it where it starts. And it's not all, it's put into law in California, as you just said with the Giffords group, but Handgun Inc., Brady Guns, the HSUS, the Hypocritical Society of Urban Snobs, all those guys have pet people on the legislature. They hand them the bill. I've met some of these state legislators on the other side. I got to tell you, they can't think their way out of a wet paper bag, but all of a sudden they come up with a 1,700-page bill that restricts all of my rights with perfect spacing and font. They didn't do that. They're handed this. They walk in like dolts and put it on the counter and say, let's vote on this. Let's give it a name. The Puppies and Cinnamon Law. Oh, who doesn't like puppies and cinnamon? Okay, what does it do? It does everything bad in the world. We lied. There's also the gut and amends, which you're fighting. I think 100 of them this session, Rick.
Yeah.
What is a gut and amend?
So there are three kinds of bills. I've been doing this talk a lot lately. So most of us grew up or watched in a classroom, even the younger folks that watched the program and listened to it. And that was the famous cartoon, I'm Just a Bill on Capitol Hill.
Yeah.
That is actually constitutionally correct on how the system's supposed to work. Then you get to California, and we have two exceptions to that are now more the norm than ever. One is called a spot bill, which is where you take an existing law and you want to make a technical change. So maybe there is a law that says you can't cross the street to the school without a crossing guard. So now this legislator is like, I want to do something to in that space of like crossing guards and crosswalks and kids and schools. So they take and they come up with a bill that they call Bill Number 1, and they say, I'm going to change the word them to they. That's a technical change. So now that bill goes through the process. It gets heard. Well, I'm not going to come out and oppose or support a bill that just makes a technical change of them or they. That doesn't really change anything. It's a grammatical change. But now we get to June, July. We're late in the legislative season, and something happens, and this person wants to do it. They launched that bill as it stands as a spot bill, but now they fill out all the blanks. And now it's something I'm like, oh, crud. We got to.
Where did this come from?
Right. Now we're on that spot bill, and three things happen. Number one, the people listening to this is like, well, where the hell were you? Why weren't you jumping on this when it first started? Because it just started. We didn't know where it was going. That's number one.
It's not like a tadpole. These things come out as a big frog. They start in a bullfrog stage. It's not something because they have this way to get in under the radar.
Right. Number two is the representation on the bill already happened, because every time it went through the committees as a technical change, they were checking off the box that was in those committees. It does not have to go back through those committees to be heard as amended. It's already been through it. So you can rush this bill directly. The other way is if you really want to be dirty and slimy, which
you know what? We're gonna hold that for our next session, just to show you how dirty and how slimy our elected representatives or selected representatives are. Folks, Philip Naiman, firinglineradio.com. Get our podcast there, get our YouTube channels, and get some great discounts from great sponsors. Might as well save you some money while we're at it. We'll be right back after this. Gut and amend. Oh my goodness. They should just change that status from gut and amend to lie and cheat. Let's just be honest.
It is.
Yeah. All right. You ready?
Yeah.
Hey, folks, welcome back to Firing Line Radio Show. Philip Naiman here with Rick Travis, the legislative director of the California Rifle and Pistol Association. He's doing God's work, fighting for your rights in the Western U.S., not just in California, but everywhere else, because we're all connected through the Ninth Circuit Court, and we need to stop the craziness where the crazy happens. We need a restraining order on state legislators and just keep them restrained to Sacramento. That would be okay. But we're talking about some of the ways that they cheat. They lie, they cheat, they steal, they destroy. That is their nature. These are not good people. These are evil people who are in power. And anytime that happens, because they're weak and they're evil, they try and impose their will through any method they can. They lie, they cheat, they steal. That's who they are. One of the three ways that they have of lying to the public is to create a bill in January that says this is the puppy, sunshine, and cinnamon spice bill. We want puppies for everybody. And who's going to vote against that, right? But there's no language inside the bill until probably the beginning of the month of August. And all of a sudden, this I want puppies bill turns into what? The zombie bill, Rick.
It can turn into a zombie bill. It can turn into a, hey, we don't want to fund kids in youth shooting sports bill. It can be anything. And, the zombie bill that you referred to was a proposed tax bill on ammunition and firearms purchases. And that had just been for like the previous 7 months, a water bill. So when people are like, well, how did you not see this coming? Because I'm not in there to look at water rights. I'm there to look at firearms rights and all the activities that derive from the Second Amendment. So no, I'm not looking, because there's literally thousands of bills in both houses in this state.
It doesn't matter. It could have been water bill. It could have been, again, the puppies bill. But right. What happens is they take whatever language has already passed through the committee. And here's the crime. This is the crime against our country and our Constitution. These bills go through committee, both sides look at them, even though there's a supermajority, and they say, okay, this is rational, we'll do this. As soon as they pass it through the committee, someone else takes a giant eraser, throws all that information away, and writes a new bill that's now going to be voted on the floor, regardless of what they put inside of it.
Correct. And the only thing that stays the same as it did start out was a bill number. That's it. And then people, again, are mad and saying, like, well, why didn't you guys get on this? We did. The moment it happened, we're on it. But this is one of the areas where we're blocked. And so, like in California this year, they've come out with about 35 bills that you can actually say, hey, we support or we don't support. But there's an additional 70 out there that are spot bills and another 160 possible gut and amends that are sitting out there that could go on anything.
That's 260 changes.
Right.
Yeah. In 1 year, one legislative year.
Right.
And it's allowed to be so because we have Igavenus Nerosum, the little emperor who thought he should, in charge here. We don't have leadership that's constitutional. We have dictators. Everybody has a fiefdom and they want as much power and money as they can for themselves. It's disgusting and it needs to be stopped. And the way you stop it is you help us fight. Be the point of the spear, be the special forces Second Amendment warrior, get involved with the California Rifle and Pistol Association, give them the money they need. To gut and amend a bill, let's just say if I wanted to, as a state legislator, if I wanted to create a bill called the Puppy, Sunshine, and Cinnamon Act of 2023, and then in August, I gut and amend it with mandatory buyback of all firearms and all ammunition, $50 per household. What did that cost me as a legislator to do that?
If you had a bill that you personally were the author, co-author on, very little, and would probably take less than 24 hours. Yep. If you had to go borrow a bill from another legislature, you might be doing some vote trading in the background. But again, it's going to happen in about 24 hours.
So I, as a legislator, can do that for free every single day, create a new bill and do these things because that's my goal, is to destroy the Second Amendment.
Right.
Hypothetically, me, but not me.
Yep.
But what happens is once those bills hit the floor, then it takes time, talent, and treasure to defeat them. And so they try and drain us because they know that, hey, they can just put their signature on it and it's done. The state has paid for the paper, the ink, the printing. They just put their signature on it. And now it might cost $1 to $5 million for the gun owners of California to fight that idiotic bill. And once we fight that, he signs another one and he signs another one and he signs another one. And they're trying to drain us, our time, our treasure, and our talent by just continually bringing up the same crud over and over again with no repercussions. So that's one of the things we need to talk about, is how that
and we have a good bill as an example of how twisted this is. And so there's a fight in California to remove the next generation, which is a very socialist communist thing straight up to do, is to change the generation coming up to not be like the ones previously. So what they're trying to do is remove all contact with firearms away from them. So last year, they passed a bill 2571 that said you cannot have any kind of advertisement from any firearms manufacturer. And as you know, we've done things together over the years, Phil. If you're holding a pheasant hunt, a competitive shoot, yes, firearms companies will donate ammunition, firearms, because their name goes up on the banner and stuff like that. That's part of their advertising. Well, they got told in California.
First Amendment right.
Right. You can't do that anymore. Forget the First Amendment, forget the Second Amendment, forget the Fourth Amendment, and we can keep going down the list. We don't care. This is what we're going to do. And how they got that passed so quickly was a company had made, I think more as a joke, a little AR-15 plastic gun, go kill them all kind of a thing. It was over the top, I'll even say that, but they took that and used that as the example of why they should be able to do this. So this year we have a bill called Assembly Bill 262 put up by...
So we're not allowed to give advertising to minors, but they can all watch Call of Duty, World of Warcraft, and shoot and do 360 no-scope headshots all day long. Just irrational killing they can do. But learning safety, learning good gun handling, that is illegal.
Absolutely correct. So now we have Assembly Bill 262. This bill started out 4 years ago by a very, in my opinion, disingenuous, to be polite, senator named Portantino. And what he came up with was a bill called Roxy's Rules. And that's how the press has played with it. Roxy was a young girl, I believe between 8 and 12 years old, who died at a city pool during a city summer camp. That was tragic. I feel bad for our parents. And so, obviously the parents don't want that to happen to anybody else's kid. I get it. Neither do we. So Roxy's rules was this overreaction by Portantino of anything dealing in the camp space had to be regulated by the state. Well, of course, a lot of groups pushed back. Holden re-picked up the bill, and it's still called Roxy's rules, which would deal with swimming. But what this bill deals with is, and it's called Camp Guidelines, is a stakeholder group that does not have any nonprofit in the 2A space, any other group in the 2A space in it, has people completely outside to come up with a set of rules and a set of fees to maintain a shooting range on a camp. This would include Boy Scout camps, Girl Scout camps, JROTC camps, religious camps, any camp that has a BB gun range, a shotgun range, axe throwing, what have you. Nope. You will have to pay fees. You'll have to meet standards set by people that have nothing to do with the space. So
and
what's
probably don't have any children.
Right.
The other thing is, this is Supreme Court in like 1812 law. The power to tax is the power to destroy. If they can charge a fee on it, they can continually raise that fee till it's till it reaches unobtainium. The power to tax is the power to destroy. And that's why they always start with the fees, a registration fee. It's only $20. It's only this. It's only that. Oh, come on. It's for the children. Yeah.
Right.
Said the people who are doing drag show story hours to children that aren't theirs. Yeah. This is all the same group, folks. It's evil incarnate in every different avenue. It's like the spokes on a wheel. It all comes back to the same hub. Whether we spin it around, it's people attacking the Second Amendment or free speech or social liberties. All of them come back to the very same hub of evil.
And the issues and talking points that people in any state can look at is, in California alone, from about mid-June to mid-August, there's about 500,000 kids annually to get their first or second introduction to firearms training. But they do that at camps. So if now you raise those costs through those fees to maintain those ranges to a state maligned standard, you can price the camps out where the camps have to close those programs, and you can cut off that training to 500,000 kids, and there goes the next generation.
And that's accidental, of course. Folks, Philip Naiman, Firing Line Radio Show. Get our podcast, firinglineradio.com. Join the CRPA.org. Folks, we'll be right back after this with more good news. Okay, maybe that was a lie.
Yeah.
Okay, let's round this up with our body armor. That just, when you told me that, my mind exploded again.
Yeah.
I don't know, Rick. I really don't know. Like say Mike Morrell, right? I love the man. I don't know how he could have sat through all of those sessions in there with all these people continually lying, pushing their evil agendas. How do you not just stand up, walk across the room, and just slap somebody silly? Because enough is enough here. That's why I'm not in the legislature. What'd you say?
I make snarky remarks in the hallways that sometimes gets Chuck or somebody above me going, "Dude, you can't say that." Sorry, the little man beside me said it.
your level of restraint is commendable because they're evil. They're evil people. All right, let's pick this up here. Our last session. So anything special you want to cover?
Yeah, I would like to bring up Senate Bill. Let's see, should we just stick this one? Yeah, Senate Bill 8, which is the gun insurance bill, because they're trying to take that nationwide.
All right. Okay, we'll pick it up. Ready?
Yep.
Hey, folks, welcome back to Firing Line Radio Show. I'm going to jump right back into it here. We've already done our introductions. This is important stuff. This is our last session for the day, so I want to make sure we have all the info we can get to you. California's got a couple of great things going on here. The Gun Violence Protection Act and the ghost gun definition. Both of those are terrible. So let's start with that, if you would there, Rick.
Well, we have yet to define what a ghost gun is. There are several spot bills that we've already talked about, a couple possible gun amendments, and a couple of bills trying to proceed to tax, to lock down, to increase penalties, to do research, which will cost more money out of gun owners because we're the ones that have to pay for that research because we're not the criminals that use these pieces. It's also another way of them violating, the idea that the legislature does legislation, justice does judicial, and executive does executive. But this study bill would actually create a system of where justice no longer reports to itself, it reports to the legislature, so the executive can decide how they want to handle it.
And the ghost gun definition, what they're trying to
Ridiculous.
say is any firearm, if you've had a legal firearm, somebody stole it and ground down your serial number, that's considered a ghost gun, even though it was always a legal firearm. Anything that they can't find the owner of, they're calling a ghost gun. So, say you inherited your dad's 30-30 or whatever, and it's stolen and then it's used in a crime. And it was, 1950s, your dad bought this thing, that's a ghost gun. So they're trying to find every avenue they can to increase the numbers of things that they can call a ghost gun. They're not purely talking about 80%ers that somebody honed out in their backyard. They're talking about anything they can to inflate those statistics to cause a problem that doesn't exist. Now, problems are criminals. We have done everything we can to coddle criminals in this state, to put them back out on the streets. And not only are we reducing felons, you're going to blow your mind, folks. Not only are we reducing the time that they need to spend behind jail or in the dirt, which is my favorite place for a felon, we need to protect them when they're out. Now, there's something about body armor in California. They're going crazy over it right now, that they want to restrict my ability to purchase body armor. And even if I have body armor, correct me if I'm wrong here, Rick, somebody could use that as a red flag to take my firearms just because I have body armor, because I'm a range safety officer and I don't trust newbies. So that is enough to give a red flag and pull all my firearms and my Second Amendment rights just because I own it in this new thing. But if I'm a gangbanging felon with 3 kills to my credit, and Gavin Newsom, I promise him I'm going to vote Democrat if he lets me out, what happens, Rick?
Most of the time, what happens is your new parole officer will issue you for 4 to 6 weeks body armor to protect you, because often there's a hit put on you by either people in the prison or people in your old neighborhood that didn't expect you coming home so soon.
I'm sorry, can you say that in English? It sounded like you said that the state would furbish felons released from prison early, which they shouldn't be, body armor for their safety. That's what it sounded like you said. I know it couldn't have been that.
Those are the formerly misunderstood incarcerated, not felons at that point. But yeah. So they let them out. They give them body armor to protect them. But meanwhile, both of the proposed bills would say parents to put a backpack on that has a body armor panel in, which over 250,000 were sold here in California, that every morning they put that backpack on their kid to protect them, since the state has said you can't have armed security, you can't do this, you can't do that, and you've created this soft target with our kids in it, and a parent wants to give their kids the best chance of surviving it. Yep, that's a misdemeanor every time you give Billy or Susie that backpack.
What if I'm a felon? Now, if I'm a felon and I have a firearm, that's another felony. If I have ammunition, I can get bounced into jail. And I believe if I have body armor, that's also another violation of parole. So how does this happen then?
They're called exemptions. So for example, you and I don't qualify as firearms instructors, as range safety officers, as people who are in the public eye to have body armor, because the Department of Justice and legislature says no. But a brand new actor, actress does, a politician does, a political operative does, that they've approved. Your kids don't, a felon does. Like, it is this weird jigsaw puzzle that if you're part of the democratic machine, you're protected, but if you're not, you're not.
Yeah, but what I thought I heard you say was that they're giving felons body armor as they come out because they want the best chance of a felon criminal who's done something so heinous, even the other criminals want to kill him. They want him to have the best chance of survival, but not your kids. Now, that's what I thought I heard you say. I know.
Yeah, that's pretty much what you heard me say. Yeah. That's pretty much what you heard me say.
No, but what I thought I heard you say. Okay. One other great thing that's happening, and it happened nationwide. And those of you in Arizona, Kelly McMillan was my friend. Kelly McMillan was under Operation Choke Point with Eric Holder the last time Obama was president. And they used Bank of America to pull his line of credit and try and run him out of business. And now they're doing the same thing here. And so this is something that was illustrated nationwide because the ATF said, you're going to do this. ATF is under the Department of Treasury. Treasury handles the banks. They're going to try and restrict things financially. Mike Glover, who's been on our show before, great guy, Fieldcraft Survival. He just had another payment system pulled from him. He doesn't sell firearms, right? He has self-defense training. He has fieldcraft training. He has medical training. That's what his group does. They've gotten their credit card processing done. What else is going on with this now on the financial side?
On the financial side, we have a bill. We actually have two bills that would come into the finance. The first one directly is one from a guy named Senator Min, who's pure evil as far as I'm concerned. And Min is looking at going to Congress in the 24 elections and trying to do so as the most anti-2A candidate in the state's history. He's working hard to get that title. And his bill would now make it very, very hard for any banking institutions, called Senate Bill 637. And it says any banking institute that works with a firearms group or manufacturer will be banned from having any state contracts or finance things. And there's counties that are lining up to join Min on this. So it basically means if you took a, Bank of Podunk says, oh, well, I want to help out this event. And so they go ahead and give a loan. They have a bank account. They have some kind of financial agreement to do that. Means they can never accept anything working with the state of California that the state is on. And people realize, well, that might not be a big deal. No, you have to look at the fine detail. I know in your personal life outside the radio show that you work in the finance. A lot of times the state ends up buried deep in the paperwork. Well, all that stuff would be offline. That is designed to financially break financial institutions to deal with those. It's highly discriminatory.
Yep. That's why call Cornerstone Christian Wealth Management. We are pro Second Amendment.
Yeah. And then the other one that was recently a gun amend. So it goes with your show today, was Senate Bill 8, which started out as a domestic violence bill. We were kind of watching it. It has now become a gun insurance bill. Right. And it requires everybody to get insurance on their firearms, so the event that they're used and you're sued civilly, they know that you're going to have some kind of money for it. And they run with this thing of, well, you have to have insurance on your car, and your car could be used to kill somebody. Yes, but when I go out and I buy a Subaru, or I buy an F-150, or I buy whatever kind of vehicle, it has zero impact on my house insurance. My insurance guy doesn't call me up and go, oh, you bought the Raptor, Rick. I don't know if we can insure you anymore. But I guarantee you, when you look at firearms insurance, that's exactly what's going to happen. Yep. You're going to have major insurance companies go, the liability risk to us in this is too high, and they're going to cancel insurance policies. Californians right now are suffering from that, because you were right at the beginning of the show when you talked about the amount of snow and rain we've been, impacted with over the last month, has caused all sorts of damage to areas where they had fires. And guess what? Those people don't have home insurance because the insurance company said, no, those fires were so bad, we're out.
Yeah, they raised mine 50%. They raised my insurance rates. So here's the thing on this is, again, insurance, you heard me on the CCW podcast, insurance does not cover you for any willful act of against the law. It just doesn't cover you. It's illegal for that to do it. So what they're saying is, and your homeowner's insurance right now already would cover you for an accidental discharge. So this is just a way to try and force the insurance companies to drop your homeowners and once again attack you from behind. Folks, which is what they do. Folks, Philip Naiman, Firing Line Radio Show. Go to firinglineradio.com for the podcast. Join the California Rifle and Pistol Association. Be a patron. Be a patriot. Be on the tip of the spear, the Special Forces Second Amendment warrior that you want to be. Get involved with them. Send them money to fight this fight, because there's enough zombies for all of us. That's just the way it is. Rick, thank you for all you do.
Thank you.
We don't know why, or we don't wonder why you still drink. We know, we get it. Just kidding, folks. God bless you all. Have a great weekend.
God bless you too.